Hello everyone, and welcome to this meeting of James Gillespie's High School Parent Council. I'm Sarah Scott, the Chair of the Parent Council. Thank you for joining us tonight. Before we start properly, can I remind you all that we are experimenting with using captions or subtitles for this meeting. As you will have seen from the joining instructions, these can be activated by going to settings and choosing either English or one of the other languages, Polish, Ukrainian, Urdu, Italian and Chinese, simplified or traditional. This is an experiment and we don't know how well it will work in practice, so please do let us have your comments after the meeting, both about how the English subtitles capture what we are saying and also about how well it translates into other languages. We have chosen languages which we hope are the most useful for parents and also in response to specific requests to the Parent Council. We will review this after the meeting and before the next online meeting in March next year. Please let us know what you think. Can I move on now to the usual apologies for any technical issues we might have during the meeting? For example, if you're having problems joining us or hearing us, or if one of the presenters' Wi-Fi freezes, we ask for your patience. Just a few brief points before we start the meeting proper. We're using Microsoft Teams for the meeting because it's a system approved by Edinburgh Council. The only people who can be heard during the meeting are the presenters. Everyone else attending can write questions via the question and answer panel, but can't be heard. The meeting is being recorded and it will be put online for those who can't make it this evening. So please don't share any personal information that shouldn't be aired publicly. We're aiming for the meeting to last between an hour and an hour and a half, and we will do our best to keep to that timing. As I mentioned, we can only take questions via the question and answer panel. Questions will be published for everyone to see by our parent moderator, so if you would like your question to say private, please say so when you type it in. Can I also ask that all questions and comments are expressed in an appropriately courteous way? We will try to answer as many questions as possible during the meeting and to make sure we cover a variety of topics. To help manage the questions, if someone has already asked the question you want to ask or something close to it, please like it rather than ask it again. If at the end of the meeting your question has not been answered and you still need a response, please follow that up by email to the school or to the Parent Council so we can deal with it after the meeting. So tonight our main presentation is an analysis of the school's SQA exam results in 2022. We are delighted that our head teacher, Neil McCallum, is here to take us through that. When we originally asked for this topic to be covered in this meeting, we had hoped that Deputy Head Teacher Bob Shankland would be giving the presentation, as this is the area he had been working on at the school for a number of years. However, Bob has recently moved on to a new post at another school and we wish him all the best for his future there. Neil has kindly agreed to give the presentation instead. Of course, Neil will also be giving his report as head teacher, as at all Parent Council meetings. So in order to give him some respite during the meeting, the running order will be, first, the presentation on SQA results. Second, I will give an update on behalf of the Parent Council. Then Neil will come back to give his head teacher's report. And finally, we will do the question and answer part of the meeting. So to start, I will hand over to Neil to give his presentation on the school's SQA results.
Thanks, Sarah, and good evening, everybody. Thanks for those who have been able to join us. And as Sarah said, I'm here to give an overview of the school's SQA results for the diet that were sat in May 2022. I'll just share my screen so that hopefully we are able to see the information. Okay, so This first slide I'm going to share with you, I'm going to look at our National 5 qualifications, and we're going to compare the number of presentations and the achievement of our young people from 2022, and we've included the data from 2019. You might remember that over the last couple of years, the assessment process has been changed and altered due to the pandemic, with in 2020, it was submitted grades by teachers, and 2021 was the alternative certification model. Whereas this year, there were modifications done to the overall presentation and the courses, which were put in place by SQA. Our young people then sat examinations in May in a normal exam diet, with those modifications and supports in place to try and enable them to demonstrate the best of themselves to be able to achieve. And just for information, I sent out in the Friday update last week a link to the SQA website for parents and carers, and a different link for young people, which takes you to a link on the SQA website, which will give you an update in terms of the modifications that they're proposing for the coming academic year, to support young people as we come out of the pandemic. So looking at our 2022 National 5, you will see that we had an increased number of entries, up about 300 in terms of the overall entries for our young people. And you're also able to see that we had the cumulative bands and the number of young people who were achieving, and then the difference compared to 2019, and also the difference to the national award levels at those different grades and bands. So obviously you can see a positive picture there in terms of how our young people have done in National 5s, and how that has grown and developed since 2019, to let you see the number of young people who have achieved an A Band 1, all the way down to those who didn't quite manage to achieve. And I think part of that context for those who maybe have a no award will be obviously personal circumstances, but then I think we also have to be aspirational in regard to presenting our young people and making sure that they have the opportunity to go forward and achieve the highest level possible. And sometimes that comes with a positive outcome for them, and sometimes they don't just quite make it. Something that we certainly want to look at in terms of making sure that young people have that support to be able to go forward and achieve the best qualifications that they can. So that's our National 5. And moving on to our higher picture again, giving you an overview, you can see that our number of entries is up slightly by about 150 or thereabouts, in terms of young people sitting higher in 2022 compared to 2019. And again, you can begin to see how our young people have done in achieving the different bands and grades from A all the way down to no awards again, and how that has really impacted in terms of their achievements. And again, a very positive picture for our young people, a good percentage of young people achieving those A Band 1 and 2, into the Band 3 and 4 for a grade B. So again, a very positive picture for us, and delighted for the young people who achieved those successes. And then finally, in this type of format, these were our advanced hires, which were down slightly in terms of the number of presentations. But again, you can see how our young people have done in 2022 for those who did go forward to sit their advanced hires across a range of different subjects, how they did compared to 2019. And again, it's looking like a positive picture for us in terms of the progress and the attainment of our young people, and how we would hope that they would progress to achieve. Again, slightly different numbers achieving across ABC in particular, a really positive picture there, and really pleased for the young people who in sixth year who would have achieved these qualifications, and potentially a couple in S5 who maybe had early presentation. So the next aspect I'm going to go on to share with you, it comes from our insight analysis tool, which is a national tool that the Scottish Government introduced a number of years ago. This takes all of the data from our SQA qualifications, and presents them in a variety of different formats that lets us have data to analyse how our young people have done across the range of different subjects. It allows us to see how our school sits in comparison to a virtual comparator. The virtual comparator takes similar young people from across the country and creates a virtual school, if you like, of young people and how they would achieve with similar backgrounds, similar levels of qualifications and how that looks. It then creates a picture for Edinburgh City Council and how that is for the overall and the 23 secondary schools across the authority combined together. And then finally, the final column shows us the national establishment. And so that's how young people have done across the country in these qualifications. And we're looking at this diagram, we're looking at the lowest 20%. So that is in terms of the young people with the lowest number of tariff points. So each qualification is awarded a certain level of tariff points, and that increases as we go through National 4 into National 5, higher into Advanced Higher, the greater the number of the tariff points that you would achieve. And those number of qualifications that young people sit, in our case at James Gillespie's High School, young people generally will be presented for 8 subjects across S4, 5 and S5, and between 3 and 4 is the normal in S6. So you can see for the lowest attaining 20%, and a picture for us this year with those young people in S5, which is this diagram is taken from, slightly below our virtual comparator, so that's something that we will look to work on and improve, but slightly above both Edinburgh and the national establishment. As we move into the middle 60% of the attainment cohorts and the young people who have attained in S5 last year, you can see that we're sitting above our virtual comparator, Edinburgh and the national establishment. And then finally, as we move on to the highest 20%, so the highest attaining young people in our school, you can see that they're coming in with about 1,625 tariff points above our virtual comparator, Edinburgh and the national establishment. So I'm going to move on and take you through the last 5 years in terms of lowest, middle and highest attaining young people. So this slide here, you can see for 2018-19, 2020, when we had the year of the pandemic and our first lockdown and young people not having sat their exam diet rather, sorry, and then 2021 with the alternative certification model. And you can see that unfortunately our lowest 20% of attaining young people in relation to the tariff points that they achieved are not quite meeting the virtual comparator, which is, as you can see, is very strong, slightly above both Edinburgh and the national picture, but obviously the virtual comparator is really an aspect that we would look to be in line with, if not slightly ahead of, to ensure that we feel that our young people are being given the best opportunity. And this is an area that we're going to be looking at in the coming year as a school, about how we support young people and to have appropriate pathways to have that support with mentors, with different approaches to try and ensure that they are achieving. So that could be young people who are on the borderline between sitting National 4, National 5, or struggling with higher, and how do we make sure that they go on to achieve qualifications and get accreditation for the work that they have done. So certainly an area for us to look at, and an area that we're very keen to take forward and make sure that we continue to raise the attainment for all of our young people at James Gillespie High School. So moving on to our middle 60, you can see it's a much stronger picture. So again, this is the large middle cohort of our young people and across the past 5 years. You can see we're outperforming the virtual comparator as well as Edinburgh and the national establishment. And again, kind of peaking somewhere around about 1,000 tariff points or thereabouts across the 5 years, pushing up to just above 1150 in 2020. And really keen again to ensure that we offer appropriate pathways and curriculum for our young people to attain and achieve the different levels of qualification, to make sure they get the greatest level of tariff points and the right qualifications to support them in terms of the pathways that they would like to take beyond school, whether that be college, university, or into employment. But again, for the middle 60, I think that's it's quite a strong picture. And as we moved into our highest attaining, our highest 20%, those young people who are really attaining very highly across the last 5 years, again, you can see it's a very consistent, a very strong picture for young people in terms of how they're attaining, and it lets you see there's a fairly consistent level of, even through the last 2 years, with a different model of certification, and again into 2022, continuing to ensure that our young people are doing well. And again, we want to make sure that those young people who are going on to do hires and even advanced hires in 6th year are taking the right pathways, and we're supporting them to access the right level of certification and to achieve the highest level that they possibly can. So this next slide takes us into increasing participation, and this is only showing the last 4 years. This aspect is updated in February, so there are 2 updates with our Insight tool that we receive, one usually in the middle to end of September after the SQA exam results are released in August, and then with a further update in February, which will pull through the appeals process, which has happened over the last couple of years. So any young people who have their qualifications upgraded, that will be pulled through into our data and how that is reflected. But also at that point, we pull through the destinations that young people are going on to. And again, this gives you an overview of all school leavers at the different years of exit point, and how they're going on into positive and sustained destinations. So that can be university, it can be college, it could be employment, it could be an apprenticeship, as long as they've gone into a destination. And obviously we're very keen for that to be at 100%, and you can see it's consistently high over the last few years. It's certainly somewhere around about 96, 97, 98%, and obviously we are continue to work with Skills Development Scotland and all of our young people and all of our other partner agencies to ensure our young people are supported into positive and sustained destinations, because really that's what we would like for all of them to be able to achieve and to go on and have successful and happy lives. But again, hopefully you see this positive picture, and again, I'll be happy to share further information in February time when we have the most up-to-date information at that point, which will show us the 21-22 picture. So moving on to attainment in literacy, and young people again on their exit point, and you will see there are 4 columns here. The blue and the pink is at CQF level 4, so that's level 4, which is equivalent to national 4 qualifications, and then SCQF in the green and blue columns there, in relation to similar to national 5 level qualifications. And certainly very keen that we begin to unpack and look at the range of different qualifications that are available, whether that be national awards, national progression awards are also there, Skills for Life courses, which allow young people to access level 4, level 5, level 6 and beyond courses, which don't all have an exam at the end necessarily, but allow them to attain and achieve to the best level possible. So again, you can see how the school has been doing in terms of literacy, and a kind of generally strong picture with almost all young people achieving at least at level 4, and then going on with a strong picture at level 5. And again, we would obviously like to see our level 5 being a little bit stronger there in terms of our young people against their virtual comparator, and that's something that we will continue to work with the English department and across the school, because literacy should be embedded across all curriculum areas, and is the responsibility of all staff to make sure that our young people have those skills to be able to achieve the appropriate level of literacy. And similarly, here is the picture for numeracy, and how we have been achieving over the last number of years. And at level 4, we are slightly behind our virtual comparator. And again sitting somewhere around about 90 to 95%, pushing up towards 100 in 2020. So again, we'd like that picture to be stronger, and it's about ensuring we have the right pathways and the right support. And that's something we're beginning to do, not only within our own context, but to work with our cluster primaries to make sure that we support that development of numeracy from the earliest of ages, along with literacy. Again, at level 5 numeracy, you can see it's an improving picture from 2018 into 19 to 20, and 21, 22 are fairly consistent. And we would like to push on and really strive to get all young people to level 5 before their point of exit. So the next sequence of slides I'm going to share with you are based around how we are working as a school to look at closing the poverty-related attainment gap, which is both a national and an Edinburgh City Council priority. And along the bottom here, you'll see the Scottish Index of Multiple Deprivation in terms of deciles. So 1 to 10, 1 is the least affluent, 2 to 10, which is the most affluent areas. And then on the left-hand side here, the complementary tariff points. That's the tariff points that young people have managed to attain across in their 5 best subjects. And the reason they take that is to create a level picture across the country. And again, you can see here that we also have a yellow line with the top and the bottom, and that is the range of tariff points for young people in those deciles in those areas. So you can see in SIMD 1 here, that runs from just below about 10 or 20 tariff points up to just about 420 tariff points, all the way through to SIMD 10, where we have a range across all of this group of young people who are ranging from 10, 20 tariff points way beyond 500. So again, really strong picture. This is for our S4 who sat the exam in May, our new S5, and the area we would identify here that we would like to improve and work on over the coming year and support young people is in SIMD 6. So again, we would be able to identify these young people to be able to support them to try and make sure that they are achieving in line with and beyond the virtual comparator. And again, as you look at a lot of the other SIMD deciles, young people have done well, and we're slightly above the virtual comparator. Obviously, the size of the circle reflects the population in our school community in S4 who are from those different deciles, and that gives you an overview in the context of the schools. So that's for S4. And then moving into S5, again, you can see quite a strong picture here in terms of particularly our deciles here and how our young people are achieving in comparison to our virtual comparator. And you can also see in SIMD 4, for example, young people have done well, achieving over 600 tariff points. And then slightly concerning down in this area here, a very small population, but a young group of young people we would want to support to achieve, particularly if they've returned for S6, to make sure that they are achieving a greater number of tariff points. And again, these can be for a whole range of different personal reasons as to how young people have done in their qualifications, but obviously we are working hard to make sure we support all of our young people to achieve the best that they can. So that is the picture for S5. And then finally for S6, our year group who have just left us, you can see again, generally it's a strong picture. SIMD 7 there is one that we would want to be a wee bit stronger. 9 and 10, very positive picture. Again, good range going beyond 1400 tariff points. SIMD 5, again, excellent again, compared to the virtual comparator, several couple hundred tariff points stronger. Small population here in SIMD 2 and 3 that again we would like to see a stronger picture for these young people. And that's certainly something, as I say, we'll continue to look at and support. And that's something that we don't wait until they're in 4th, 5th and 6th year. We're very keen to make sure we're engaging with young people, and that begins at the transition point, coming into high school and even before that really, working with our cluster primaries, our transition teacher now, to try and support young people and to make sure they have appropriate pathways to go on to attain those positive sustained destinations that we were talking about earlier. And I'm going to conclude there. Hopefully that's given you a good overview and a good insight into how our young people have done in the recent SQA exam diet, but also gives you a bit of an overview of how the school has done over the last few years, taking into consideration, as I say, the different certification models that we used with the SQA to make sure young people were presented to go on and achieve their awards. Okay, thanks, Sarah. Back to you.
Thank you very much for that presentation, Neil. Just to let you know, if you're watching, the slides will be shared on the Parent Council website after the meeting, so if you haven't managed to keep up with those or you would like to review them, or I think there was one comment was that they were too small, then they will be available to see again there, and we will do that later this week. There are a number of questions. I think because this is a short meeting with only basically one presenter, and also because some of the questions relate not only to exams but to connected issues, I'll go ahead now and do my report, and then we'll go on to Neil's report and we'll deal with all the questions at the end. So now I'm going to give a brief report on Parent Council activities. As we announced at the beginning of this year, the Parent Council is alternating between online and in-person meetings this year. Our most recent meeting was in person in the school in October and was also our annual general meeting. This was the first in-person meeting we had held since the beginning of the pandemic. We were delighted to have a good turnout of about 30 parents, and there were reports from me as chair on Parent Council activities in 2021-22, and from Ros Ingle, our treasurer, on Parent Council finances. We heard from Deputy Head Donna McKeever, who showed the meeting photographs of the new Darach building, and one of the main jobs at the meeting was to appoint the new Parent Council and office bearers for 2022 and 2023, and a list of those Parent Council members can be found on our website, together with all of those reports and the photographs and other information on Parent Council activities. You can find the website at jghsparentcouncil.org, and that address has also been put in the Q&A near the top. At the website, you can also join our mailing list. Please do sign up. We send out mailings currently only 2 or 3 times a term, so you don't need to worry about being deluged with material. The main issue of general discussion at the Parent Council AGM was about capacity at the school looking to the future. The Darach building is now providing extra accommodation, but the strong feeling in the meeting is that we need to get the council to focus early on what the position will be in 2 years' time and thereafter, and to campaign now for a solution which is based on providing accommodation at the school campus. The Parent Council will be following up on that and will report to future meetings. At previous meetings, I've also reported on steps being taken by the council to recruit a new permanent head teacher for the school. The post was advertised earlier in the autumn and closed on 30th of October. Since then, the recruitment process has moved on to interviews, and there are 2 members of the Parent Council on that interview panel. Final interviews are taking place this week, and we hope that there will be an outcome reported towards the end of the week. So look out for that report. Can I take the opportunity to remind you that the Scottish Government is currently running 2 education consultations. The main one is called the National Discussion and is intended to get a wide response across the country to set the focus for education reform over the next 2 years. The school has sent out information on this, and there is also information and links to the consultation on the Parent Council website. The consultation closes on 5th December. The second consultation is on Scottish qualifications and assessment and closes on 16th December. Again, there are links on the Parent Council website. We have been assured that the contributions to the national discussion will also be fed through to this consultation. There will be a further consultation with more concrete proposals on qualifications and assessments in the new year, and we will send updates on that once we have them. The Edinburgh Council groups, which are a normal part of the council's engagement with parents, have now been set up again following a delay after the council elections in May. At a South East Edinburgh locality meeting last week, one of the issues we heard about was a deputation to the council's education committee by teacher representatives raising problems with the adequacy of the IT infrastructure across Edinburgh's schools. This seems to be an issue causing difficulty across the city, and in some schools it's proving to be both expensive and creating problems in the classroom. Another issue raised by parents was that of vaping in schools. There are concerns that this is becoming a very common habit, which creates health concerns and, in some cases, disciplinary problems, particularly in school toilets of the traditional kind segregated from the corridor, where there are also concerns that groups are using them for vaping, putting other children off using the toilets, and school staff are having to spend a lot of time monitoring behaviour there. There also seems to be a lack of clarity about schools' powers to confiscate vaping equipment. Because these do seem to be big concerns affecting lots of schools, we have asked Neil McCallum, as part of his report tonight, to let us have an insight into how these two issues, IT infrastructure and vaping, are affecting James Gillespie's and whether we face the same issues as in other schools. Also, on the subject of school IT, representatives from our Pupil Voice also took a deputation to the Education Committee to make representations about limits on the use of YouTube on school devices, which were affecting the work of senior pupils. This is a complicated story, and I will leave it to the head teacher to explain what the current position with YouTube is. But the Parent Council congratulates those from Pupil Voice who took that issue forward and got a successful outcome. Another issue which is being pursued by parent representatives with the council at the moment is that of arrangements at schools when strike action is being taken. At the moment, we have had one strike by the EIS union on 24th November, and there is currently scheduled to be a strike by another union, the SSTA, on Thursday, 8th of December, with a further EIS strike in January. This is obviously a very fluid situation, and parent representatives have asked the council for guidance on how they plan to deal with ongoing strike action and the effects on schools. Parents on our mailing list will have seen that an issue that was brought to the Parent Council's attention recently was a planning application for a 5G mast, which would be placed in White House Loan. The Parent Council itself did not take a position on the mast, but we felt it was important to let parents know about the application in case they wanted to put forward their own views to the Council. There appear to have been quite a large number of objections to the application, and if there are a sufficient number which relate to what are called material issues, which would include visual impact and things like restriction to access to the pavement, then the application will have to be considered by the Council's Planning Committee. Turning now to Parent Council finances, on behalf of Ros Ingle, the Parent Council Treasurer, I can confirm that since the meeting on 6th September, we have paid out a total of £5,739.40 to the school as grants made through this year's Small Sums Fund. Of this, £4,102.46 came from the Parent Council's fund in the school's parent pay account, and the rest, £1,693.44, was paid to the school via bank transfer on 16th September. This all relates to money which was raised by the Parent Council in the financial year 2021-2022 with the aim of supporting the school. Some of the projects that our Small Sums Fund supported this year include guitar lessons for pupils with additional support needs, trips for vulnerable and socially isolated pupils, sports kits such as leotards and basketball and football strips, resources for the Maths Club, Black History Month competition prizes, a Digimap subscription for the Geography Department, music resources and STEAM Club resources, as well as other items. When the Parent Council makes appeals for donations, these are the sorts of activity we are looking to support, and they are all made on the basis of applications from the school itself. Going back to Parent Council finances, we also received our annual grant from Edinburgh Council for 2022-23 in September, amounting to £1,359.40, which is for Parent Council running costs, and a grant is made to all Parent Councils. The second easy fundraising payment of the school year of £111.44 was also paid into our bank account in November. So altogether, the balance of the Parent Council bank account as at 27th November is £3,610.39. This, however, includes the remaining money, £2,109.86, collected from Mr. MacDonald's retirement, which is not Parent Council money, but which we are holding pending completion of a plan for the awards that the Parent Council is setting up in his name. I'm sure we're all really happy to see that community events are taking place in the school again. As you may know, before the pandemic, the Parent Council supplied refreshments at these events to make them even more enjoyable to attend and also to raise funds for our Small Sums Fund, which we have just been hearing about. So please look out for Parent Council stalls and for some events for support supplied by pupils as well over the next few months at the coursing evening for S2, S4 and S5 parents on 6th December, at the Christmas concert on 13th December, and at the Darch building open evening on 25th January. We hope that these will be very sociable and enjoyable, and we look forward to seeing parents there. We are in the process of purchasing a terminal for card payments to be used at refreshment stalls at these events. We hope this will be set up in time for the Christmas concert and possibly earlier. However, please remember to bring cash, as we are not yet sure what the position will be. We're also about to launch the Parent Council's festive fundraising campaign for 2022, and you will be receiving more information about that as we move into December. Over the pandemic, when we couldn't be at school events, we did most of our fundraising via parent pay, and parents very generously donated to keep our work supporting the school going over that period. This year, although we will be raising money in other ways, we know that it is easier for many who want to make a donation to do so online through the Parent Council's Parent Pay button, and that will be the focus of our festive fundraiser. We know that these are difficult times for many, but if you are in a position to make a donation and want to help us support the school in enriching the educational experience it can offer to pupils, please consider this. Another way to support our campaign, and at no cost to yourself, is using Easy Fundraising, which makes a donation to your chosen fund when you shop online. You can find further information on all of this on the Parent Council website under fundraising. Just to remind you, the website is at jghsparentcouncil.org. You can also get to the website via the Parents section in the school's own website, and the address has also been posted in the Q&A. Thank you for listening to all of that. I am now going to pass you back to Neil McCallum to give his head teacher's report. So can I ask Hilary, our producer for this evening, to pass us over to Neil? Thank you.
It is going very slowly, sorry. It says sending, and Neil is still being sent.
No problem. Thanks, Sarah. So I'm going to give you my update and touch on quite a few of the points that Sarah has mentioned there from the Parent Council perspective. I'm going to start with a staffing update. So as Sarah mentioned at the beginning, in terms of prior to the SQA presentation, that Robert Shanklin, our Deputy Head Teacher, took up a similar post at Bulweary High School in Fife after nearly 18 years with James Gillespie's High School. So we wish him every success and thank him for everything that he has done in terms of taking the school forward over his time with us in a variety of different roles. I'm pleased to share with you that Mr. Nigel Cotter will be coming in as the new Deputy Head Teacher, and he will be joining us this coming Monday, the 5th of December. And he comes from St Augustine's High School on the west of the city, comes with a wealth of experience, and we look forward to welcoming him to James Gillespie's High School, and he's going to take up the remit that Mr. Shanklin undertook going forwards. We also welcomed Miss Joanne Graham and Miss Sophie Douglas, who have joined us in the Biology and Science faculty. They are with us at present, and they looking to increase, they're both with us part-time at the moment, but we're looking to increase them in terms of time that they're with us to cover other staff absences that we're already aware will be happening, such as a maternity leave. We also welcomed full-time into the music faculty, performing arts faculty in the music department. Miss is Sophie Douglas, and she started with us a week past on Monday. And you okay?
Is not Mrs. Saunders in music?
Miss Saunders, I think you might be right. I've written that down wrong. I do apologise. Thank you. Sorry. So yeah, Miss Saunders has joined us in music and seems to be settling in really well and enjoying her time with us so far, and hopefully looking forward to seeing her being part of our Christmas concert. We have managed to appoint 3 pupil support assistants. We have Mr. Oscar Hipkin, Miss Sharon Leving and Miss Angelina Halzine. They've all started with us yesterday, and again we welcome them to the James Gillespie's high school community and look forward to working with them. We still have a couple of other vacancies that we're trying to fill, and I'll come on to that a wee bit later on in terms of the process for that. We have one last vacancy at the moment, which is in modern languages. We're trying to process that and fill that as quickly as we can. However, we do have a languages teacher who is with us currently, so young people should still be receiving languages delivery in those classes. So moving on to a digital update, and firstly a little mention from Deputy Head Teacher Mrs. Laura Stewart. Laura has done a power of work in terms of the digital strategy of the school and really led the empowered learning, so the distribution of our one-to-one iPads, and held an open evening which was well attended, and it was great to see people manage to make that along to online event, which was supported by colleagues at the Council Digital Learning team. And Laura had also shared through the Friday update that she is looking to pull together a digital short life working group, and she is going to be in touch next week with everybody who's come forward to put themselves in place for that to schedule the first meeting. She's been coordinating the S4 prelims down at Darragh with Mr. Shanklin moving on, so she's very much looking forward to working with the parents and carers in terms of how we take forward our digital strategy for the school. So as Sarah mentioned earlier on, we had an issue with YouTube across the whole authority. It became apparent to the digital learning team that there were issues with access to YouTube and inappropriate content across the whole learning estate. And as a result of that, YouTube was withdrawn while they put in appropriate measures. That took a little bit longer than I think was anticipated, which obviously then had a quite serious impact for particularly I think our senior learners who use YouTube to support their learning in terms of accessing subject support and to do some flipped learning in and around different aspects of the curriculum. Excuse me. So I had quite a number of our young people contact me to ask about why this had been done, so I was quite happy to share that with them and to share that this wasn't specific to the school, but it was something that had been taken at the authority level. They did manage to move quite quickly to restore before the October break this access for teachers to allow them to utilise that within the classroom to support the learning and teaching and how that's used, which is obviously particularly for subjects like modern studies, it can give the best and most up-to-date information for sharing with young people. However, they still hadn't resolved that issue for our young people. So during the October break, 4 of our senior pupils attended the committee, council committee at the City Chambers, where they went along with one of our local councillors, and they presented on the case why YouTube should be reinstated. I think they were then questioned quite heavily in and around the different aspects, and from several people who were present at the committee that day have shared with me they were quite outstanding in terms of how they dealt with the questions that they were asked, and the rationale and the justification for why this aspect should be reinstated for all young people. I'm pleased to say that the week we returned after the October holiday and after our exceptional closure, we were then asked to trial, the access to YouTube for young people to be able to feed back in and around any aspects or issues or concerns, which we were more than happy to do. That was then rolled out across the rest of the authority, and the digital team continued to monitor that and have asked for feedback from across all schools as to any sites which we utilise for learning and teaching, and young people would be wanting to access, which for a variety of different reasons maybe weren't becoming accessible, and therefore we continue to feed that back, and again receptive to our young people sharing that information with us, and staff have been really excellent at again detailing and sharing that information with us if there are any aspects to YouTube that they wish to be able to access to support the learning and teaching which they're not having success with, and likewise if they're coming across anything that they feel is not appropriate, we're sharing that information as well. But it certainly seems to be in a much healthier situation to support all of our young people with their learning and teaching. Another aspect that Sarah alluded to is the ongoing upgrade of systems and IT infrastructure. Obviously, James Gillespie's High School, the building is 6 years old, so the infrastructure itself is more modern than it may be in other areas of the city. However, we'll continue to work together as a school and also with our colleagues at the local authority. I'm part of a Headteacher IT group, which is looking to feed back issues that we're having in relation to IT, and that is all aspects from our desktops, laptops, to our iPads and empowered learning, our phone line systems, which are voice over internet protocols, all runs over the same system, to the Wi-Fi in the school and the different aspects and platforms that we have to use in the day-to-day running of the school. So we're making sure that we're registering these and logging these issues as they become prevalent for us, to make sure that we get that level of feedback to CGI, who are the providers for City of Edinburgh Council, and to support progress and improvement in the delivery of an appropriate IT structure. So for us as a school, there are lots of aspects which actually are quite strong and we're quite happy with. There are other aspects which we think still need further improvement, and around the Wi-Fi, for example, and obviously with every young person now having their own device, and making sure, however, the one aspect of the Wi-Fi, it does seem to be working from a conversation with Mrs. Stewart more strongly, is the actual Wi-Fi designed for the iPad. So we will continue to monitor all of these different aspects and aim to make sure that we have these functioning as best possible for the well-being of staff and also the learning and teaching of our young people. Moving on to school trips, and as we come out of the pandemic, we have been very keen to engage in the trips that would tend to happen throughout the academic year. Those fall into 4 different categories. Category 1, which is a kind of normal run of the school trip that would happen in the school day. So maybe going to the museum, for example, through to categories 2, 3 and 4. Level 4 would be an adventurous trip, or an overnight trip. And we're certainly happy to support and progress those with staff, and we're certainly trying to do that to make sure that as many young people get opportunities that they've not been able to be afforded over the last couple of years. The one area where we still don't seem to be able to access yet is the foreign trips. And again, we're still waiting for an update in regards to the aspects of that, and that still seems to be around the insurance aspect. We had one of our quality improvement officers in visiting the school on Friday, and that was a question we asked them to take back to the centre to try and see if we can get a wee bit further clarity in and around the time that will take place. You may well be aware we have partners schools in France, in Spain, in Germany and South Africa, and I've been in regular correspondence with all of them over the last couple of months. They are very keen to re-establish these partnerships in the way that they were prior to the pandemic, and are certainly keen and have the ability to be able to do that. However, until we have the position that we're able to do that. We're not able to guarantee and start these trips up just yet, but please be reassured that we are trying to make sure that everything that we can authorise is supported, and sharing that information with parents and carers. I'm also aware that some of our young people would have had the opportunity for residentials, for example, so we are investigating some alternatives, particularly for our S2, S3 young people who maybe not had opportunities to attend an S1 residential, for example. Are there some other alternatives that we could offer them in the course of this academic year? And again, once we get further clarification, I'm more than happy to share that with you. And as soon as we get further information in and around our ability to take forward those foreign trips and really establish those partnerships with our partner schools, I'll share that information with you as well. And I do appreciate that the picture will be different in other areas of the country and other private schools, for example, across Edinburgh. Obviously, we are guided by the local authority on this aspect. The prelims, the S4 prelims, have been taking place over the last week and a half, and they are taking place down at the Darragh campus, and that's been taken really well. The cohort have adapted really well. The S4s have been very good in terms of dealing with that, and it's really their first set of significant formal assessments. They seem to be enjoying the use of Darragh for that purpose. It seems to have been particularly successful because of some of the smaller spaces that are available to allow for greater flexibility to accommodate all the additional support needs for young people, alternative arrangements and these qualifications and sitting these assessments, and we're looking to how we can continue to develop that. Obviously, we have the 5th and 6th year assessments coming in the new year, and we'll be corresponding with our 5th and 6th year parents and carers over the next couple of weeks. It's allowed us to ensure that there's not been the same disruption to junior classes on the main campus, which has been a real positive. Normally we would lose a large space such as the games hall, and that would have an impact on the junior classes. And obviously we've had the splitting of the National 5, the S4 from the higher and advanced higher, and that's allowed them to continue their learning as well. We did have to rearrange the maths and German assessments, which were supposed to take place on the 24th of November, but due to the industrial action, that wasn't able to happen. But these have now been moved to Tuesday, the 6th of November, and young people have been informed of that, and communication should have been sent out to all S4 parents and carers. Our Darragh campus, as you know, is now open and running and has been successfully operating since the October break. Pupils and staff have settled well into the building and seem to be successfully navigating the journey between the main campus and the new refurbished building on Gillespie Street. Snagging continues to be ongoing to make sure that the building is operational and as good as it can be, and the contractors are still on hand to make sure that we maintain that high quality state of the building as we received it. We were hoping to have a Darragh Open evening on Thursday the 24th, but unfortunately as a result of that industrial action we have had to reschedule that to the 25th of January, Burns Night, but that will hopefully help in terms of how we move forward. So as soon as we have further information on that, we will share that with you and make sure that everybody who would like to come along and see Darragh and have a bit of a social aspect to the evening as well, and that would be fantastic to see everybody. Moving on to our supported self-evaluation, I communicated through our Friday update that we're doing this in conjunction with officers from the local authority. This took place on the 7th, 8th and 9th of November, and there were over 90 lessons observed as part of that process, as well as a number of focus groups where officers from the council, including head teachers from one of our local secondary heads, and one of our primary head teachers joined us for the 3 days, and they were able to meet with different focus groups looking at different aspects of the school. And a huge thank you to the parents and carers and partners who were able to attend as part of one of those focus groups. The key strengths that came out from that were the positive relationships developed by staff, which contributed to a learning environment in which young people are cooperative and keen to learn and engaged in their learning, and the staff's commitment to supporting the well-being of all young people, and this was built on an ethos of mutual respect. Also, how the school has continued to move forward through the pandemic and as we come out of the pandemic, but also because of all the other mitigations that have been in place for the school and the school community over the last few years. In terms of next steps, we're really focusing on developing strategies to raise attainment for the lowest attaining groups of young people across all stages. And by doing that, we want to ensure that we can monitor and track progress, achievement and attainment for individuals and groups of young people. And we want to make sure that the processes we have in place are systematic and able to support the progress and development of our young people, and how we do that in terms of taking them forward. There's lots of effective practice within the school, and looking to see the shared understanding of what high quality learning, teaching and assessment means for James Gillespie's High School, and this should guide us in terms of our improvements and attainment across all curricular areas for all learners in the coming years. And this is an aspect that we will very much take all of these next steps when the report is finally shared with us, and build that into the school improvement plan for going forward over the next 3 years. So, mental health aspect and the support for young people and their mental health was an area that was strongly seen as a strength in our supported self-evaluation, and our Senior Development Officer, Ms Nikki Graham, has done a power of work since taking up her post in May-June time. She is going to share a communication later this week with all parents and carers just to give an update, because we know we've also had a huge support from both the Parent Council and the James Gillespie's High School Trust in supporting and funding the different aspects of looking after young people's mental health and well-being. So we're offering supports to young people who've been referred, and that's an important aspect of this, is they need to be referred. They can't just turn up. And that's is needing additional support in nurturing an environment. So their pupil support leaders or guidance teachers are making those referrals, and we'll do that in conjunction excuse me, with parents and carers. And we've created a flow chart for our staff to be able to see that process, and again that flow chart will be shared with all parents and carers later this week. Last term there was training delivered along with our 2 educational psychologists to 10 members of staff who have become mental health coaches. This involved training them in the nurture-based practice, theory and skills, and we also trained 36 senior students to become mental health companions to help support this work. So as a direct result of upskilling our own staff, we're able to provide support this year for students with the following group work sessions taking place. Let's introduce anxiety management, Liam for short, a group for S1 pupils. Let's introduce anxiety management group for S2s. An S1 girls group to support anxiety and self-esteem and building friendships. An S1-2 boys group to support anxiety and self-esteem. An S2 girls group to support anxiety and low self-esteem. An S3 mixed group speaking more openly about emotional and mental health. An S4 mixed group supporting with exam-related stress and anxiety and exam preparation techniques. A senior mixed group where support with exam-related stress and anxiety and exam preparation techniques takes place as well. A mindfulness mixed group and a mixed Duke of Edinburgh Arts and Craft Therapy. So we're offering break time support to students as well who may feel a wee bit more socially anxious or vulnerable and would like a quieter place to be during their break. And our mental health companions are supporting this, and they are also delivering support in the snug and teaching our S1s the Young Minds Matter mental health part of the curriculum. In addition to this, we are also offering music therapy with Nordhoff Robbins on a weekly basis. We have She Scotland Female Mentoring and Leadership Programme, and soon going to be trialling an HE programme for boys, so we're excited about getting them involved with that. Excuse me, a health zone is also a confidential drop-in run by our school nurses on a Wednesday. We're about to begin engaging with Penumbra, a self-harm service, who will be offering drop-in sessions as well as delivering training to the senior leadership team and pupil support teams, and looking to link with additional partner input to support with eating disorders. We're also looking to start Seasons for Growth support group for young people struggling with the impacts of bereavement or major loss and change. Our Wellbeing Hub are also offering literacy and numeracy support for young people struggling with their wellbeing, and Zones of Regulation, which is a series of lessons looking at supporting students to recognise when they are feeling out of control, regrouping themselves and then refocusing their attention so that they can self-regulate in a classroom or social situation. Nurture groups consist of small groups of students who will be able to work through building confidence, self-esteem and nurture-based workshops. And last but not least, we also have a school of basketball. Here we're supporting students who are struggling to engage in class but have a keen interest in sport. And here they will benefit from an environment where they're encouraged to lead and communicate more positively with peers in a basketball context. As I say, there will be an update coming out to all parents and carers later this week with that information. Moving on to vaping and toilets, and I know vaping is an issue, as Sarah alluded to, that has become very much more prevalent in our young people post lockdown, and this is something that obviously I think all schools are having to deal with. We are aware that some young people have on occasion been vaping in the school building, in the toilets in particular, and obviously we've tried to deal with these situations and follow our school non-smoking policy. All of the council buildings are non-smoking buildings, and obviously that includes vaping, and again really trying to engage and use education with our young people to make them understand the impact that they can be having on themselves, and that the research is slowly beginning to come forward in relation to vaping and the possible impacts of what vaping can have on your body, and how that impacts. And again, excuse me, this also links into the aspect in and around toilets, and wanting to make sure that all of our toilets are accessible for all of our young people, and young people feel safe and secure to be able to go and access these facilities. So again, I think in terms of moving forward and relaunching our smoke-free policy, we're going to do that. We're going to take a working group forward, and we'd really like that to be led by our young people. I think that's really important, really very powerful that it's coming from them. And that's an aspect that the senior team will be looking forward to taking forward with the pupil voice, and young people across the school who would like to be involved in reviewing and developing and relaunching that policy. So that links me into the toilets, and I know we've had some feedback in and around the toilets. I think it's probably an appropriate time for us to begin to look at how the toilets are accessed and utilised. Again, that links into the opening of Darroch and how we've tried to make all of these facilities accessible for as many young people as we possibly can, and to make them feel comfortable and safe in these environments without having to feel that they're being policed by teachers all the time. So again, I think what we'll be looking to do here is take that forward with our young people. They're the ones who use the facilities, they're the ones who know what they need, and again, what will allow us to provide the best facilities for all of our young people. So that's certainly something that we're looking to take forward as well. Moving on to the strikes and the industrial action. Obviously we had the one already on the 24th. It's the dates that we have presently are the 8th of December, so that's a week on Thursday, which is the SSTA and the NASUWT. Had a meeting this afternoon with officers from the centre, with all head teachers, and we've been asked to do risk assessments ahead of the 8th and trying to identify what the situation will be for each individual school. This one will be slightly different. The EIS is predominantly the union that primary teachers would be linked with, not all, but the majority, and obviously a significant number of secondary teachers. But the Secondary School Teachers Association, SSTA, will have a range of different number of members across different schools in the authority. So on this occasion, we're being asked to risk assess that situation, and also link in with our senior education managers at the centre. And on the back of that, then communicate with parents and carers either Thursday or Friday of this week to inform you of the situation for us as a school, and how that will impact us in terms of the 8th of December. And the EIS have also identified that further potential dates could be the 11th and the 25th of January. So as I say, I will carry out that risk assessment tomorrow, and then be able to update you on Thursday or Friday as to what our plans are. A link in about support for learning. I know Mr. Cockcroft and the team do an amazing job supporting all of our young people with the number of young people with those additional support needs. And we have been trying to appoint a number of pupil support assistants to link in with our young people, to link in with our support for learning department and support the learning and teaching of young people across the school. As I mentioned at the start of this update, we've managed to appoint 3 new PSAs who started with us on Monday. The process has been altered slightly by the local authority, in that they're now doing central recruitment for pupil support assistants, and as schools need them, we'll link into that. So we'll be linking in with the authority as to the vacancies that we still have for our pupil support assistants, and trying to fill those vacancies as soon as we possibly can. But again, we continue to keep you updated for new positions as we have them filled. Also had a request in and around year-head updates or termly updates, because we've now moved to a house head situation. I'll certainly be taking that back to the house heads and having discussion with them. I think that's a wonderful idea to be able to share an update on a termly basis about successes for our different houses and different communities, to be able to share that with parents and carers and let them know the successes and the news for those different communities. So again, we'll take that back and share that information with you as to when we think the best time for those updates to come out will be. And finally from me, just some upcoming events. This Friday we have our senior pupil production in the theatre in the school, and thanks to the parent council who are supporting with a lot of these events. Next Tuesday we have our coursing evening taking place in the Malala building. We then have our school Christmas concert on Tuesday the 13th, and end of term is on Tuesday the 20th of December. And that is me. Thanks, Hilary. I'll have to pass back to Sarah.
Thank you very much for that, Neil. That's a lot of work we've had you doing this evening. I'm afraid that it's not over yet, because we do have a number of questions. I see the time is nearly 8:10. I think we'll aim to finish about 8:30, 25 to 9, and we'll close the Q&A soon. So that now everybody's had a chance to hear what Neil's had to say, so we can round things off. As I said earlier on, we are going to try and cover a variety of questions, and I will certainly look at the most popular ones that have the most likes, as we have done in other meetings. We won't be able to cover everything, so if you do have a question you would really like an answer to, do get back in touch with us after the meeting and we will deal with it then. The first thing I would like to do though is kind of round up a number of questions which are about S6s, what access they have to space, to study or to a common room, and whether it is still true that they need to leave or are encouraged to leave the school campus when they're not actually in class. I thought I'd just roll them together because it's an issue that keeps coming up, and perhaps Neil, you could clarify what is the position with the S6s and what use can they make of the Darragh building?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, we were actually discussing this at the senior leadership team again this evening. So our S6 have access, and we're still utilising, sorry, I'll start again. We're still utilising a number of different areas across the building, including on the ground floor, what were computer classrooms. We're still continuing to use them as classrooms to try and ensure that the learning and teaching right across the whole curriculum. Teachers have a consistent classroom and young people have a consistent classroom to be able to attend and use. So obviously there's a slight knock-on effect for our S6. What we have done in the exceptional closure days is revamp the areas on the ground floor where the S6 would, I think, traditionally use in terms of the booths and the study areas, and thanks to the staff who did a power of work to try and make that space much better for our S6. That space is available to our S6, and there's some signs up there just asking them if they can be conscious of when classes are taking place in the spaces beside, if they could use a different space. But generally the S6 have been fantastic in terms of their response since we came back after October, and are utilising the spaces really maturely and effectively. Because of the opening of Darach, that's freed up the forum, which is still set up as a classroom at the moment with the desks and chairs, so our young people in S6 can utilise that space because we now don't have classes in the library. Again, S6 are welcome to use the library as a study space, and they're also welcome to use the dining space in the Muriel Spark building, and we've seen more of them beginning to use that again since we came back after the October break. There are also a number of spaces down at the Darach building where we have study pods and booths, and a large space on the ground floor which has been opened up as a dining space. So again, we're more than happy for our S6 to utilise that space. I appreciate not all of our S6 will be down there, but again, that is a space, and certainly no, we don't expect or need our S6 not to be on campus. We would like them to utilise these spaces, and I have to say we're also seeing a lot of our senior pupils, 5th and 6th year, and probably some of our 4th years at the moment too, utilising these spaces after school right up towards 6 o'clock, which again reflects what they're trying to achieve and working and supporting each other, and again doing that with a lovely level of maturity to utilise these spaces. So yeah, 6th years absolutely can be on site, be on campus, and that includes down to Darach. The only request we particularly have at Darach is that we ask them to sign in and notify when they sign in which area they're going to use to study in, and again that's just for via evacuation policy, so as we know who's in the building, and we can make sure that everybody is safe and well. So hopefully that will clear that one up, and as I say, yeah, delighted for our S6 to be on site and utilise the spaces.
Thank you, Neil, for that answer about the S6s. Just going to another topic which has come up, looking at the exam results for this year. The comment cites an Edinburgh Live article which says that James Gillespie's High School had a disappointing result this year, dropping 11 places and losing 6% of their numbers of pupils, leaving with 5 hires. In 2020 they had 68%, that dropped to 62 in 21. Why have we been slipping down the tables compared to other Edinburgh schools? I wonder if you'd like to comment on what the nature of the tables are that seem to appear on exam results, what they actually mean, and also I think it might be interesting to look at what the difference between how the exams were assessed in 2020 and how they're assessed in 2021 were, because obviously that was during the pandemic and the system was different in both of those years and different again from 2019 and this year.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. So yeah, obviously these are tables that tend to relate to the Sunday Times, and obviously the school has won the Sunday Times award previously, and obviously it's an aspect that is of much contention, and I think it depends on your view of the tables and how they support schools in terms of how they move forward. Obviously, we're always striving to ensure that our young people are supported to achieve the best outcomes. As Sarah said, the process through 2019-2020 the assessment of young people was different. In 2020, that aspect was done by the estimate grades that were submitted to the SQA, and they were used to then support the certification of young people at that point. In 2021, we had the alternative certification model, where young people undertook assessments within their own school establishments, and that was the evidence and the data that we had to utilise. So again, trying to gather the best evidence that was possible for young people to identify the grades that they were able to achieve. Coming back to this year, where young people then went on to be presented and sit qualifications in a more traditional manner with the exam diet, which was held in May of this year. And again, looking to make sure that young people would be following appropriate pathways. I know from discussions that we've had at senior team level in and around the analysis of that, there were a significant number of young people who were heavily impacted by the pandemic in terms of their health and well-being. I think that's had an impact and has been a factor for a number of young people in the school community who maybe didn't go on to be presented for as many hires as they might have been had we not had to go through the pandemic and the situations that then brought forward for young people and families. So again, I think that for us as a school moving forward, it's about trying to look at supporting our young people with the best pathways, whether that pathway is towards 5 hires in university, or whether that is towards the right level of qualification to support them into an apprenticeship, is supporting all of our young people for the best outcome for them, and to make sure that James Gillespie's High School is being the best version that we can possibly be to support our young people for the best outcome.
Thank you, Neil. There is a question here I thought you might want to address about the planning for SQA exams this year. The question is whether there will be any concessions next year in recognition of the number of days of learning they have missed in 2022-23. 5 days on learning over the summer because of the timetable changeover issues in June, time because of the Queen's funeral, additional days, I think it was a day and a half for Darach move, and now missing days due to strike action, which could have effect on pupils in the senior years, especially those taking hires and advanced hires. Now, obviously, that's a mixture of things which were specific to James Gillespie's and things which affected all schools in Scotland and other parts of the UK as well in some cases. Do you know what the SQA is thinking about its approach to the exams? Will they be taking any special steps as they've done in recent years to recognise the disruption to children's learning, either in the last few years or that might be happening this year, particularly with strikes?
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. So yes, as I alluded to in my update and earlier on in the presentation, and the update I sent out on Friday should be a link there which will take you to the SQA website. And again, looking at factoring in the impact of the last 2 years and still coming out of the pandemic, there will be modifications in place again for a range of different qualifications. This year, for example, papers were modified in terms of the length, for example. Different subjects perhaps didn't have an assignment aspect to them that they would traditionally have had. Young people were supported with aspects of the final assessment and booklets of information of areas to focus on in terms of preparing for those final assessments. So that's the kind of generic approach that the SQA would be taking to accommodate and to support young people again to be able to show the best of themselves in the range of qualifications and subjects based on their experience over the last 2 years and the impact that will have had, both in terms of their absence, staff absence, and the different factors. I think absolutely the range of different aspects from the Queen's funeral to the exceptional circumstances to now the industrial action will continue to have further impact. I completely understand that, and again, I would be keen to have communications with the SQA to make them fully aware of our school context and the impact that we have had on top of what's happening nationally and even at Edinburgh level, and to make sure that they were well aware of that. And again, as we move forwards into the new term after Christmas, we'll be looking to support our young people across all year groups, but particularly for young people who are heading towards sitting national qualifications by offering additional study support, looking at our Easter programme of study support as well to ensure that young people are supported to be prepared for those assessments and how those are taken forward. So yeah, certainly very conscious, very aware of the impact of all these different factors have had on young people, and keen to support them to make sure that they're able to showcase the best of their talent.
Thank you very much, Neil. Could I turn now to a question, I think, which will be easier to answer. Does learning state mean all schools?
Sorry, so the learning estate. Sorry. Yes. So
yes.
The learning. Yes. Sorry. The learning estate, yes, is all educational establishments within the local authority. So that would include our early years, primaries, and secondary schools. So that would cover the whole learning estate, and that's the responsibility of the local authority. So from our nurseries, which are either independent or some are linked to primary schools, all of our primary schools and our 23 secondary schools across the authority. So that's what covers the learning estate across the City of Edinburgh Council, and would be the same in other local authorities across the country. Thanks.
Thank you, Neil. Can I move on to a question which has come up a few times? It's, could you clarify why S4s don't get leave for prelims this year?
Yeah, so study leave has been designated as a time for the main exam diet in May, and there are only a limited number of days that's supposed to be in place. Sorry, I think I was maybe a bit quick out the blocks there. So yeah, study leave is something that really was designed for the main exam diet, which takes place in May for all 4th, 5th and 6th years. And as a result of that, there's only a certain amount of time that is assigned to allow young people to be on study leave. Every time a young person comes in for an assessment in that exam diet in May, that is a presence in terms of attendance in the school building, and therefore both the local authority and nationally, they've taken that approach that young people should be in school and learning as much as they possibly can. So obviously the timetable that was put in place for the 4th years, we've tried to be sympathetic to that, if you like. Obviously, if our assessment is starting at 9 o'clock, we're asking young people, and again, because we're using the Dara campus to accommodate the assessments, they can arrive straight to that campus where they would be registered. If that assessment takes all morning, we would then obviously allow them to go for lunch, and the expectation is that they would be in class in the afternoon. Obviously, if that's a subject area where they haven't had the assessment yet, then we're asking staff not to go into any new learning, because other young people may be in an assessment at that point as well, not to do any new learning, but to consolidate and to support and to prepare our young people for these assessments. Once their subject assessment has passed, then again there's a degree of professional autonomy in that they can continue to support. So if a young person perhaps needs a bit more support in terms of that subject area, we would totally expect our teaching staff to be engaging with them in that. If the young person is making a request to say that actually I've got an assessment tomorrow morning and I feel that it would be really beneficial to use that time, I've already had the assessment in this subject, it would be really beneficial to use this time just now to focus on preparing for the assessment coming tomorrow. And again, we're happy for that arrangement to be in place, and that's why we've also tried to make sure that the assessment window is no longer than it needs to be, to allow the young people to have the experience of what it will be like in May, sitting consecutive assessments. And again, it'll be the same situation for our S5 and S6, and that's the same for all 23 secondary schools across the local authority, not just James Gillespie. So, and again, through consultation with the teaching staff, we felt it would be beneficial for the S4s to have their assessments at this point. And the reason for that is it allows us to identify any areas and to also share that information with parents and carers, and gives us plenty of time rather than going beyond. Slightly differently for the higher and advanced hires, really, because they've just engaged in those courses at the end of June and moving into August, so giving them slightly longer to get through course content, to give them meaningful assessments that will allow us to gather evidence. And part of the reason for continuing to do prelims is to gather evidence, so that for any reason we need to use exceptional circumstances, so perhaps a young person suffers a bereavement in May, or ended up in hospital and wasn't able to sit their final assessment for the SQA exam diet, then we've got a bank of evidence, and it doesn't just have to come from the prelims. It gives us a whole folio of evidence across the year that we're able to use under exam conditions, both in class time and during the prelims, to support that. Excuse me. Normally, with the SQA, we have the post-result service, which was a change about 5 or 6 years ago when they moved away from the appeals system. And the post-result service really is a two-option approach, where we can ask for a clerical check. So that really is just making sure all the numbers are correct in terms of those different aspects, or we can ask for a remark of a paper. But with the post-result service, young person's grade can go up, but it can also go down, and it can stay the same. That's been amended in the last couple of years by the SQA because of the different certification models that they have taken, and the appeals have been back in for the last couple of years, and they haven't confirmed what that process will be going forwards, but given that they have already indicated that there will be modifications for the assessments later in the year, I think the likelihood is that the appeal system will still be in place, but that comes with a very severe health warning that hasn't been confirmed yet. And obviously, again, we would be sharing that with parents and carers, as we know. So I'm not going slightly further than just about the study leave there, but hopefully that gives you the bigger picture and a bit of clarity in and around that. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you, Neil. We're getting towards 8:30, so I think we'll only do 2 or 3 more questions. Can I turn to one which is also about exams? Do you believe you are closing the attainment gap at James Gillespie's High School? It's not clear from the data shown. What would you say to that, Neil?
Yeah, I think we definitely still have work to do. I think you're right. From the data that I've shared with you this evening, you can see both in terms of our lowest attaining 20%, and when I shared the SIMD profiles across 4th, 5th and 6th year for the exam diet in May, that there's work there for us to do. We have staff now in place who are taking forward the Pupil Equity Fund and identifying a range of different strategies to support our young people with interventions, particularly in literacy and numeracy. Also young people who are perhaps not attaining what we would anticipate them to achieve. So we're certainly putting measures into place presently for the current 4th, 5th and 6th years to support them, and again looking to put additional staffing in place to support those engagements with the young people to ensure that they're able to gain the appropriate level of qualification, and to obviously, as we increase attendance, which is something that's been really positive for the school, that obviously allows that engagement to take place. So yes, I think still work to do, and that's certainly something that we're working on at present, and putting plans in place for immediately after the Christmas holiday that will support young people to achieve appropriate levels.
Thank you, Neil. Now turning to a question which is about Gaelic education at James Gillespie's High School, asking what is the latest situation with Gaelic education at the school? Will it be based in the Darach long term? I understand that the council has offered 3 alternative sites, but all were rejected and that no further sites will be offered. Is this correct? Before I pass that on to Neil, who has obviously just arrived at the school, I could perhaps just say a few words about what my experience has been over the last couple of years as the chair of the Parent Council and the discussions on Gaelic medium education. No, I wouldn't say it was true to say that there were 3 alternative sites offered, but all were rejected. I think the council has looked at various sites which had various difficulties or attributions which may not have worked very well. It came to the conclusion that it would have preferred the site at Liberton High School, and that was put to the Education Committee at the Council at the beginning of this year. The Council administration wanted to move to a statutory consultation, which is a legal requirement before you can make any change of this sort. So that would be relocating a school, changing a catchment area, stopping English medium education at a school, stopping Gaelic medium at a school. All of these things would require a statutory consultation. This was put to the Education Committee and it decided, for various reasons, I wasn't party to the discussions which were obviously took place in private between councillors about why that was withdrawn, but there were various issues, including the need for the council to demonstrate that there would be what the educational benefit would be of the proposal that they had put forward, and that is an essential part of the statutory consultation, and if it fails on that part then the consultation fails, which causes big problems in the future. So that was stopped, and I believe after that the problem was that the council then went on to elections, so there's now a new council and there's a new education committee, and things have not moved on at all over the summer, though we did request on behalf of the school that the council would continue negotiations over the summer. I'm not sure where they are specifically going with that at the moment, but it will require a site to be identified for it to be built and for it to be acceptable to the parents of the children who will be sent there. Just as with any school rearrangement, it has to be clear to those who are going to be affected that they are happy with the outcome, and that would be the same for any part of James Gillespie's that was being transferred, either by catchment change or by creating a new school in the future. And I'll pass on to Neil now. I was about to say Donald. I apologise for that, Neil. You might want to comment on how GME is being accommodated at the Darach in the longer term.
Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, no, absolutely. In the Darach building, obviously when you get the opportunity to come and visit, hopefully in January, that is very much geared for GME. All of our signage from the new entrance all the way throughout the building is very much geared around that aspect. And in terms of our timetable, our GME pupils for across the whole range of different subjects are down at Darach, and we're utilising Darach for that purpose. And certainly going forwards, it's obviously about utilising Darach both for the GME and to support our senior phase pupils, which we've been doing presently. Number of young people are down there for their senior phase with double period lessons. So again, that certainly is the plan going forwards, and obviously still linking in. So that's really the situation for us on a day-to-day basis at the school in Darach at the moment.
Thank you, Neil. And I think I'll just finish with the comment which I see has the greatest number of likes, and it covers an issue which has come up in other questions on the question and answer board, which is about the size of the school and the fact it is getting bigger. The comment is, thank you for such a clear and thorough analysis. This is probably more a comment for the council than for the school, but I'm hugely worried about the increase in the school role and the failure to manage this effectively. The school is literally bursting at the seams, and my view would be that where there has been a drop in results, this is likely to be the cause. It is too easy for young people to fall through the cracks in the current situation. This obviously raises a few issues in both the size of the school and also accommodation. As I mentioned earlier on, this was an issue which was discussed at the last Parent Council meeting, and the Parent Council will be lobbying the Council to ensure that we do not end in a situation such as we had until earlier this year, when there really wasn't enough room for all the pupils in the school to be accommodated within the space we had, and that was for a whole pile of reasons. So that we should be planning for the point in the next 2 or 3 years when we do not have enough room provided on the campus and at the Darach building together, and that the council really needs to be thinking about that now and not after the fact, as has sometimes been the case, I think, in the past. But we're also going to be a very large school, and as I think I was just talking about earlier, that can't change until we have a different arrangement and would require a whole kind of legal process to be gone through. Neil, would you like to comment at all about what you feel about a big school with rising roles and how easy it is for children to fall through the cracks in that kind of situation?
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. Yeah, no, absolutely. Obviously, I wasn't at the school prior to the summer, so I've come in since August. And obviously, when we arrived back in August, we were utilising every single space in the building, and I do mean every single space across all 4 of the buildings on the main site, and that obviously has an impact in terms of ethos and the learning and teaching environment that we would want to provide for young people. Obviously, we've taken steps with the opening of Darach, and we have an additional deputy head teacher, Donna McKeever, and we've created a further house called Darach for our young people, to support them and to try and make sure that all of our young people continue to have the level of support if any young person has fallen through the crack. Up to this point, we'd obviously want to try and make sure that we put supports in place to make sure that they have the opportunity to go on and be successful. So certainly I just want to reassure you that my experience has been in the school since the start of August is that staff are very, very committed to our young people, want to do the best for our young people, and are working hard to deliver high quality learning and teaching for our young people to ensure that they can be supported to achieve the levels of qualification that they should. So and it's certainly something I'm very committed to doing, and making sure that our young people are supported as best they can. And again, obviously trying to ensure that we utilise Darach in all aspects of the buildings to provide that environment for all of our young people.
Thank you very much for that, Neil. And I think we'll call that an evening at nearly 20 to 9. Thank you again to everybody for joining us this evening, for all your questions. Just before you leave, can I direct you to one of the comments later on in the Q&A, which is about the Marchment and Sheen's community carol singing and tree lighting, which is going to be at 4:30 p.m. this Saturday, the 3rd of December, outside the Scott Mid at the bottom of Marchment Crescent. Marchment and Sheen's Community Council are looking for volunteers, and there is an email address and a phone number if you're interested in being involved in that. There's also a post about this on the Parent Council website if you want to catch up with it there. I'm sure this will be a great event, and there will be performers from James Gillespie's, including the pipe band and choir and wind band, I think, performing there for the community carols. So I'm sure it will be a great thing to go along to. It certainly always has been in the past. But just to round up the meeting, if you have a question that wasn't answered this evening, please contact the school or Parent Council direct if you would like it answered, and we will take it on from there. I would like to thank Neil for his presentation and for his head teacher's report and for answering questions. He definitely deserves a rest now. As always, we are really glad to have the opportunity for parents to hear direct from staff about all the issues which have been discussed this evening. This is our last meeting before Christmas. Our next meeting will be in person in the school on Wednesday, 1st February 2023, and we will be hearing about anti-racism initiatives in the school. We will send out more information about that after Christmas. In the meantime, happy Christmas from the Parent Council. We hope you enjoy all the school Christmas activities. Thank you and good night.